Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Minnesota GIS LIS Consortium Conference 2021. This session is for Enterprise GIS, and we have Leah and Tami from the City of Eagan. I'm Ali Husseini, the moderator for this session. If you have questions, just put in the chat box. And now I turn to Tami for this session.
Thank you. I'm just going to share my screen here. If I can figure out how to do that. Okay. Let me try that again. There we go. Can you see the slideshow or?
Yes.
Okay. Hold on. 1 second. Here. Sorry, we're getting this. Yes. Ali, are you able to see our slide?
Yes.
Okay.
This is the slide page.
Yes. Okay. Sorry about that. We'll get started. So thank you all for joining us this morning and attending our presentation. This is going to be an overview of some steps our organization, the City of Eagan, was able to use to navigate through a pool of options that we had to utilize our existing software and tools to that were available to meet our immediate and long-term needs for our field to office and office to field workflows. What we're hoping that you go away with today is an example of how an organization can use GIS as the integrator to bring various systems of information together for a variety of end uses, considering that a lot can still be accomplished with or without a one-size-fits-all system. So a little bit of background here. We had several years ago, we realized that we were struggling with the field to office workflow, and we knew that we wanted to do that. We had a lot of unique workflows that were not necessarily suited to a one-size-fits-all system. And we also really valued our mapping output, whether that be paper maps or digital maps. And we had some reporting tools that helped us manage our work, but we knew that we could do better. And we also knew that we had a lot of established GIS resources available to us since we've been building our GIS for a long time. And we are an ESRI user. We have an ESRI ELA, and we knew that the ESRI tools were really suited to our needs, and that there were some new applications like Collector and Survey 123 that we thought we could use to meet some of our needs. We had some past experience with systems and just work processes that we knew what worked and what didn't. And probably the most important part of all of this is we had motivated field staff, including field managers, and also really talented and eager GIS staff to work on some of these projects. So one of the things that we do is we have a basic development cycle that we use when we're creating our applications and our data products. So we're going to kind of show you the cycle today, and this will kind of show up throughout the presentation. One of the first things that usually happens is we have a need for information, and oftentimes that comes from a field user or a supervisor who requests the information. And then the next step is once we get that request, we oftentimes have GIS data that's available to us or other data sets that we've already developed that we can start with. So we start with that data, and then we start the workflow planning process, which would include kind of diagramming out what we need. And oftentimes that includes various users within our in our department or the city itself. And we have important benchmarks that we need to meet, and we have specific outcomes or maybe some more broad outcomes that we want to see for output. So diagramming all that out really helps us plan how we're going to deploy our applications. So once we've identified the workflow, we're in the application building mode. And what's really nice about using ESRI products and some of the other tools that we use is we don't have to worry about actually building the application. We can kind of more configure it and learn a lot of things along the way. But it's really been helpful to use already available tools to deploy out into the field and also be able to use them in the office. And then the final step is output and reporting. And I say final step, but it's really a complete cycle, because oftentimes that turns into more requests for information. But we're able to utilize some ESRI tools and some other reporting tools to provide data products with the data that we're collecting. So we haven't, as an organization, we haven't found one single system that meets all of our needs. This is kind of just an example of some of the tools that we use or have used in the past to meet a variety of end user needs. What's been really nice is GIS has been able to provide us a way to bring some data from these various systems together and provide them in some of the ESRI tools and some of the other tools that we utilize on a day-to-day basis. Here's an example of one of the diagrams that we use. This is an example of something that we've created for our MS4 pond inspection and storm inspection process. As you can see here, maybe not in the detail, but there's various steps along the way, and it gets to be very complex. So what's really nice is you can build these diagrams and get all the people involved that need to be involved in the steps along the way, and then translate that into where GIS comes into the picture. In this example, we're showing where the GIS data is showing us what is a city-owned water body that we need to go out and inspect. And another example here is our customer request workflow, where for our streets division, where we've created a diagram here that is showing how the life cycle of a request, how it comes in from the public, from a phone call or from the website, and all the way through from any work that needs to be done to the completion of that request. At that point, we have several different ways that we provide information for our mobile workforce. We've recognized that the data development was dependent on acquiring more day-to-day data from the field, from our field operations. So oftentimes we not only need to know where an asset is in the field, but we also need to know what was done to that asset and when or how. For example, a fire hydrant. And over the years, Eagan has utilized multiple field and work management tools. Most of these tools are on paper, with paper entry that remained on paper or had to be brought back into the office to be entered. And now we mainly use ESRI tools, whether that be field tools or office tools, to streamline that collection of work management data and also GPS data collection. These applications and tools have allowed us the flexibility to configure out-of-the-box solutions that meet our goals. Often this translates to one app per workflow. So we may have several apps driving a single asset's activities. For example, we have 7 apps all driven by the same tree data, but are targeted to simplify data collection for the field user on a single task basis. So we don't have to customize a native application. We have simply utilized ESRI's industry standard apps. The true customization really comes in with customizing the data to meet our needs and how it is presented and accessed. So like I mentioned, we're using ESRI apps, mainly Collector and Survey 123 out in the field. And with Collector, field apps are more map centric. So you might be wondering how you choose which one to use. This is kind of a guideline where the Collector apps are more map centric and the Survey 123 apps are more form based. So we've used Survey 123 to improve our workflows as a form-centric data collection application and allowing for conditional responses. These two can also be used together, and when you need to start maybe with a map and then move into more of a inspection form. So they work really well together, and we've been able to utilize that workflow. In the office, we utilize several different applications, including operations dashboards. We've really noticed that when we create a field app, we oftentimes are creating a dashboard with it, because once you collect the data, it's a really, really easy tool and really helpful tool to visualize that in the office. What you're seeing here is an example of our snowplow entry dashboard. So we built this dashboard to allow our snowplow drivers to select their route after an event, and then there's an embedded survey in the dashboard, so they can actually see their event plow route, and then they can enter their data right through the dashboard. And it's been really helpful. They've actually, it's been really easy for them to learn how to use that. Another application we use based on GIS is Data Link. And this is our customer request portal, kind of where customer requests start in the office. If someone calls in, a customer request can get entered into a form and show up on a map. And then from that, the customer request can be deployed out into the field or to the field supervisor. And what you're seeing here this is the same data demonstrated in two different dashboards, one for our streets department and one for utilities, where the streets requests are showing the information that is important to them to see. For example, how many requests have come in and the status of them and who they're deployed to, which crew they're deployed to. And then the utilities dashboard, they're more focused on appointment-based requests. So their dashboard looks a little bit different so that they can see what appointments are coming up for them. And then we are also intaking requests on our website through a Survey 123 form that the public can access. And when the public submits a request, it also gets created into the same request GIS data and can show up in various ways on a dashboard or in Data Link. When the request gets submitted, an email gets generated and sent to, depending on the request type, to the person who intakes that type of request. And then they can see it. In this case, you can see it in our Data Link mapping application, or some people are seeing it again on those dashboards that I showed you a little bit ago, so the same data can be reported in various ways. And that goes back to our workflow and planning, where we're knowing what the life cycle of that request is and who needs to see it when and how it gets processed. And it's been really helpful to diagram that out so that we know how to build various information tools. So the nice part about using these apps is we can duplicate them pretty easily for various workflows and tasks, and then we can customize each program we were trying to work with. So one thing that's been really helpful for us is we started to get a lot of apps. As you can imagine, it gets to be a lot to manage. So we put together a timeline so that we can visualize when the apps are available, when they're going to need to be ready to be available, and our management team and field staff can also see what things are coming up and when they might need to contact us to make any changes. For the most part, these applications, now that they're built, are running themselves. But what is really helpful and what we found is kind of an advantage to doing things this way is we do have the ability to customize the apps to meet our needs pretty readily, and we can work directly with the supervisors and the field staff to do that. This timeline really helps with that process. And then finally, once we've collected the data, and it's kind of a moving data, so it's always changing, we have output and reporting tools that have been really helpful for us. And there's various tools that we use to present this data to different people. So for example, we use, when we have a utility inspection or utility staff person that goes out into the field and visits a property, they can take note of certain things that are important to our utility billing staff. And when they do that in the survey, that automatically gets pushed out to a web map or a report or a dashboard that our utility billing department is looking at on a daily basis. So they're automatically getting that information as it's being collected out in the field. And we've done that with several different workflows. This is one that's been really helpful for us. So with that, I'm going to hand this over to Leah so she can show you some examples of some of the apps that we're using.
Thank you, Tami. So we have used multiple tools to improve our GPS data collection workflows. So following this cycle, our need is to ensure that we are accounting for any new or replaced infrastructure entering the system. We've used our GIS to make sure all the attributes are available, including benchmark statuses, and that helps us to track where we are in the given workflow during the collection process. ESRI collector and field maps is being used for collecting data in the field for GPS points as they come in, and also by our mobile workforce. What's nice about collector and field maps and also Survey 123 is that notes can be typed or voice enabled. Voice notes are helpful for quick note gathering, especially when dealing with screen glare. And also we can attach photos to a point at the same time of collection. And with our new EOS GPS system that we're using, the GPS data updates our GIS automatically, which has really streamlined our processes. So finally, like I said before, the data is available for use throughout the organization via desktop and or field applications or printed deliverables if needed. This data is available immediately to anyone using our internal mapping applications. This has been extremely valuable to improve that lag time between data collection and data use. We still have to post-process the data, but if our staff that post-processes it is maybe backlogged and can't get to it for a couple weeks, the points themselves are still available for people to see right away as soon as it's collected. Our utilities division, this is another example of where we've improved workflows. Our utilities division uses a GIS layer to track requests. Due to the nature of the work they do, they're often required to go into homes or businesses to perform work. So they need to schedule appointments to meet the customer need. So during the busy season, we may have up to 27 appointments per day, equating to 135 a week and up to 520 a month, all relying on entry into what's now a GIS, or what was always a GIS-based system to manage the appointments and follow through and any follow-up needs that came with it. But because it was already going into GIS, everything was transcribed from paper inspections, but it was going into the GIS. We knew that using a GIS-based mobile solution would be ideal and that we were already set up for it. But ultimately, we wanted to reduce the amount of paper and data entry from handwritten forms for the field because it created a lot of papers. So Survey 123 was well suited for this workflow, particularly to help us with the appointment-based nature of the work. We knew we needed to think about the data that would drive the workflow. So it was important for us to identify the appropriate fields that would correspond with specific steps within the workflow. And Survey 123 has given users an easy to access application. They're able to refresh and be confident that they have the most up-to-date information. They're able to filter by date or street or sort if they need to, which has been helpful in helping them organize their day in order of scheduled appointments. While this is list driven, there is also a map available for them to see their appointment locations and also access the survey from there. They can select their current appointment, and within the appointment, we have used some of the tools like barcode scanning and number dials to improve data integrity while entering meter numbers and meter reads. We have utilized some of the conditional responses to assist the crew in knowing what's required to be entered in a specific scenario. For example, there are times on a specific request when a new crew member needs to identify follow-up work needed, and there are available spaces for this that trigger help to them so that they understand what they need to enter. Or if a crew member indicates that there's an irrigation system, for example, the user is given an option and even offered a group of pictures to help them identify what kind of backflow prevention is in place. Once the survey is submitted, it's done, which means no more data to enter back in the office. So now that we've streamlined our data collection efforts, we're able to provide information back to the office immediately. One of the ways this happens is through a dashboard configured to track the new incoming requests as they are scheduled, deployed, or responded to. Office staff can easily see schedules and where the crews are in their day. They can also see what lies ahead for the next day or week and get detailed information about appointments. And this is all in one place. So dashboards are replacing a lot of our tabular and list-based reports. So another example I'll go through here. For our annual storm inspections. In the past, we used paper maps and paper inspection forms to record the information for our MS4 inspections. And this was something we did annually, so we wanted to transfer the GIS. We needed to transfer it to the GIS data and make sure that those tabular records were entered back in the office. And with all this valuable data coming in from the field, our GIS was housing a lot of valuable information. But with 681 inspections on average annually, this created a lot of paper. And all this paper makes it difficult to track down historic information. So again, we knew it was critical that we consider the entire workflow of information to make sure the data could be used. This helped us think about the data that would drive the workflow. We were able to create in applications for inspections to be done in Collector, streamlining the previously done inspections that were on paper. And the photos that were taken or put directly into the data itself. This was a big deal for us. We used to have to transcribe or transfer all the photos from a physical camera and bring them in, rename them according to their associated asset. And this has really improved that workflow a lot. So finally, this data is immediately viewable in various office-based applications for staff to see after it's entered. So some of the successes we've seen with these workflows being implemented are unified and streamlined workflow processes. It's a familiar, all the applications are familiar to the end users and they're all using the same data. It's not duplicated across the organization. It also promotes communication. So updates are immediate and can be viewed when they happen. We're also able to use some of the other tools that we're fortunate to have available to us, like Microsoft Flow, to trigger some of those emails that get sent out upon certain actions. It's also been really easy to train. These apps are simple and easy to learn, and they're designed for existing workflows when possible. And we're able to adapt them to existing workflows. It's also been, they seem pretty intuitive. So it's easy for anybody that knows how to use their smartphone to use these. We're also fortunate to have a very supportive staff and council. They have a willingness to try new technology and embrace a new way of providing information. And this has also just helped us discover and develop standards for services and GIS infrastructure in our organization. We've been able to refine our data sets and apply them to real world tasks here in Eagan. And then finally, we're here for the public. We've gained a lot of public confidence in the planning processes. A lot of the inspections that are done out in the field that we weren't previously able to accomplish with other systems help us drive planning decisions that make planning possible. So we're able to provide information to the public that allows them to see for themselves and answer their questions. So finally, in summary, utilizing GIS tools that are available to us, we were able to create adaptable work management and processes that are flexible enough to meet staff needs and utilize for multiple workflows and easy to maintain for GIS staff. So with that, I think maybe we got off to a little bit of a late start, but we have a couple of minutes left, so we're able to take questions, or if you want to see some of these applications live, we can get into some of them. We didn't want to do a live demo presentation, so we did our best to put it into a PowerPoint, but we can take questions now. So Ben is asking, sounds like you were using field maps. How was that move? Were there specific pain points? Does field maps meet all of your needs, or are there specific shortcomings? So I guess I can speak to that a little bit, and I'll let Tami speak to it too. I know for us, we've kind of done a soft launch for that. We've had some of our workflows move into that, and it's actually been relatively painless. We really haven't had any. The web maps themselves are the same exact web maps. They're just able to open them in field maps. The benefit to that is we're able to tell them, if you have issues, just go back into collector. But we haven't really been able to work with a lot of the new, we haven't been able to do a lot of the new steps for using the Field Maps app in ArcGIS Online. We're working towards that. But from what I can think of, I don't think there's necessarily any shortcomings. I would say the evolution or the move going from collector Aurora to field maps was a lot easier than going from collector original or the original classic collector to Aurora. That was a little more painful, I guess. I'll let Tami speak to that a little bit.
So the next question is, do we do live snow plow tracking? And if so, what do we use for that? If you're referring to maybe like an AVL system, we don't do that. That's something that we have as on our wish list to do kind of live tracking. The app that I did show, or the dashboard that I showed, is more of a survey app where the field staff are collecting the event data in a form, but we don't do any live like AVL tracking of snowplow data or snowplow events. The next question, do you rely entirely on ESRI products for your asset management, or is your WebGIS platform integrated with other software that manages different asset types, elements, cartograph, etc.? If so, how intuitive did you find that integration? So we used to be a CityWorks user, and we also use a couple of other different apps too. And we moved away from that. And, you know, back in the day, there weren't as the mobile apps weren't as advanced and I guess robust as maybe they are now. And once ESRI came out with their apps, we were kind of in a place where we were between systems. So we were kind of trying to figure that out. So what we ended up doing was saying basically, hey, I think we can do this. I think we can do this with collector. I think we can do this with survey. So we started implementing a couple of our workflows in that, and it sort of grew legs and took off. And so to answer your question shortly is we don't have one kind of classic asset management system that we're using right now. And I wouldn't say that that ESRI is a replacement for an asset management system. We kind of look at it more as our work management. So we're able to deploy our apps to meet our kind of work management needs. The asset management part of it, you know, going beyond that with kind of predictions and condition ratings and that kind of stuff is something that we're still in the process of kind of refining. So we mainly just use ESRI for our work management tools now. I did show Data Link, and that's the WSB developed that application. So Data Link is based on all our GIS data, and it's all our data that we're utilizing in that. And that is one kind of outside of ESRI application that we use to manage our requests in and manage some of our work tools. So maybe you want to.
Yeah, I was going to say, so the way that we use, do the work management is we use activity tables that are related to our assets. And within our services that we use through the ArcGIS online apps, the ESRI applications, we use definition queries to call out what it is that, what kind of work is needed next based on previous activities that were done, or, and in, you know, a handful of our assets and our activity tables, we've started tracking some conditions, but that's about as far as we've gone with condition ratings and such. So great question. So you said, so I'm going to take a question here from Ben Ruley. You said that you had staff who were mostly on board with the change to a more digital system. Did you run into any staff resistance to the technology? And if so, any tips on making that easier? Yeah, that's always something that's challenging. I will say this, we didn't know what to expect with implementing or, you know, bringing these into the picture. I will say it was very easy to train. And I think the big thing was getting it onto a device as small as a phone. I probably seems minimal, but that was huge because for the field crews, they found it was not really practical for them to have something else that they had to carry around or have a big tablet that they had to put somewhere. It was really important for them. And this maybe was even an afterthought to them after they've been using it a while, but they, you know, originally they thought mapping, they would need a bigger tablet view or tablet screen, but they found it was really critical to be able to like take that device and be able to put it in their pocket or something like that. I guess as far as the other adapting to it, it was fairly easy.
I think it's really when you have a field supervisor that's promoting it and basically saying this is the way we're going to do things, that's key. I think, you know, we've seen various levels of that within our organization, and you can tell, you know, when you have a supportive supervisor, it makes a world of difference in, you know, getting the crew to use the apps. But we had a little bit of that, but once they started using it and they were able to see how easy it was and then get, I think another important thing is to give them feedback. So if they can see, like one of the apps we have a kind of competition going on to see who can do more. So that kind of helps them kind of make it more, motivates them more to kind of use the apps. So. And Tyler is asking, did you use a webhook for generating an email when a new survey was created? Any tips on how to do that with feature data and portal to generate an email when a new feature class is created? So we do use webhooks. We use Microsoft Power Automate with flows in some of our surveys to generate notification email. We use that in the public requests. We use that to generate an email to the person who submitted the request, as well as the person that is intaking and triaging the request. And it's fairly easy to set up, and there's actually some really good documentation out there from ESRI. But we are not using webhooks quite yet in Portal. We're kind of moving into that. And if I'm understanding, I don't know about if we have a way to have an email generated when a new feature class is created, but it's mainly a new feature in a featured class that an email or some sort of webhook action can get created. We used Integromat a little bit with that as well. Hopefully that answers your question. If it doesn't, we'd be happy to go into more detail after the presentation on that as well. And Luke is asking if we've used any other asset management software and what issues we had getting staff to buy into the new software and how has that been different from using GIS-based tools. We did use, like I said, we used CityWorks in the past. And I think maybe it was more of like the time frame where mobile apps weren't as easy to develop back then. You know, probably like within the last 10 years, things have really changed. So it was more challenging for us to get our end users, our field staff and supervisors to use the tools in those systems or in that system. I think just because, you know, we were doing more of a, you know, syncing data from the field to the office and that kind of thing. So that was a little bit more of a challenge. I think a lot of those tools have much better mobile systems now as well. So how much of so Kendall is asking how much of a trial and error was involved in creating the resident survey. Do residents provide adequate information in the survey, or there often follow-up needed? Actually, it was actually fairly easy for us. We had a system previous to that we were using. It was just sort of cumbersome for us. We sort of outgrew it, and then also decided that we just needed something that was much more simple. So because we were already using requests in our public works and central maintenance, it was really easy for us to kind of just expand that to the rest of the city, and also take into account the requests that we were getting from the old system that we were using. So we were able to take all of that and adapt it to the survey, and the survey was pretty easy to put together. We do get, you know, it's open enough form that we get information, you know, from the public that we need. And because it goes directly to the people that are responding to it, you know, they're able to answer through email or however, phone call, however it is that they normally are preferred method of responding to that. And if the work is completed, are there any communications with the requester? On a lot of our requests, there is communication with the requester. I know in our utility billing department, they're interacting via email and phone a lot with the utility billing requests coming in. It just sort of depends on what department and how they normally handle things. So it sort of fits into the system that they are using right now.
So I guess I didn't realize there's another
Chat.
There's another chat here. I didn't realize that was there too. I was opening a different one. And Ali, I know we are actually, it just occurred to me, we're about 8 minutes over our time. Do we need to wrap up, or?
You have time until 11. You can go on.
Until
12 or?
Yes, 12.
Okay.
Okay, so so we've got a question here. Will you re-show your workflow request diagram? Yes. I'll be honest, for the,
If you can see it.
for the slides, I'm not sure if you can see it, but let's see if I can get it to show up here. It's actually, can you see this, Tanya?
And she might not be.
You might not be able to say anything. Ali, can you see the screen that shows the blue and white diagram?
Yes, I can see.
Okay, great. I just wanted to make sure it was up. So Tanya, this is the workflow request diagram, and actually I didn't realize until we put the presentation together that I cut off the bottom, but basically start to finish. And this is specific to our streets division. So this same request data is used in streets and utilities and like Tami said, for public requests. So based on the type of request, it then kind of gets triaged to the appropriate person. So in the instance that it goes to streets, this is the workflow it picks up. And we've got one of these for other workflows also. But hopefully this is helpful.
And we can definitely send you our diagrams too, if you are interested in seeing them.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I don't know, maybe we put our email address in the chat. I don't know if it's available.
Yeah, we can do that. So Kevin Trapp is asking, I saw on your list of survey 123 surveys that you had separate surveys liable as 1 inch and 2. I think it was something related to meters.
Yeah.
Is there a specific business need for that? Trying to think of what.
That might have been a meter app.
I'm guessing that was the meter notes that you're referring to. So Kevin, when we are out replacing meters, we need to be able to identify what size a meter is. So I'm thinking that is what you.
Oh, for separate surveys, he's asking, like, do we have a survey for each type?
Oh, are you talking about, maybe you're talking about meter exchange 1 and meter exchange 2?
Yeah.
So we have different surveys set up for each crew. So each crew has a different, so when we're scheduling meters during a very short period of time, we have 3 different crews out now. It used to be 2. But over the course of 3 months, we exchange 1,000 meters. So we have 3 different crews assigned daily, and each crew has its own survey. And the reason that we did it based on crew for that particular use is that we are able to help that crew focus on what they need, and also so that if the supervisor has to assign it to a different person, or somebody from that crew gets switched to a different task, he can just tell them to use that survey. And it's task-based, and in this case, it's also crew-based. And hopefully that's helpful in explaining that. That's kind of where typically we don't have to break them out into different crews, but for that particular one, we decided it made it a lot easier to help the supervisor deploy the work to his crews.
Yeah, and some organizations, assign to specific people. The one thing about using Survey 123 is that you can set up an inbox. So you could have a filter set up for, if it's, a specific person out in the field, that they could have the inboxes for themselves out there. We're more crew based, so we just do that for the crew. So it's kind of just personal preference or how your organization works.
Yeah.
I did put our emails in the chat if any of you want to contact us about something you've seen that you might be interested in chatting more, or want to maybe share some documents, please email one of us or both of us, and we can do our best to help you with that.
So yeah, I'm not sure if anybody is interested in seeing, it looks like we don't have any more questions. If anyone's interested in seeing our.
We might, there's a couple of questions.
Oh, I
Question
think
areas.
that's all
Maybe
of
we
them.
got through all of them. Okay.
Okay, perfect.
We're not really Zoom masters here. So.
So I'm not sure if there's any interest in seeing anything else. Otherwise, I think we are done. Yeah, one thing we thought about putting into slides, but we thought we would just share, is we found that the story maps have given us a great way to offer different applications or different
like a set of like for example, showing the streets story map, and it's a tab story map, and so we're showing a bunch of different dashboards in one story map, so they can just go to that one place and they can see all of the different dashboards that they're interested in seeing. So streets is interested in requests, but they also do tree and stump removal in this case, where they can see what the work is specifically to that, and they're involved in the ash tree removal program as well. The snow plow events dashboard, we have actually a few of them. There's an events dashboard, just, I guess we have to sign into that one for some reason.
But
Where it'll
Really
show, how much, a compilation of all the events, how much materials were used, and then the drivers specific to each driver, what went on with their route for an event.
yeah, this
or
one
in
is
total.
This one is in prep for this year's, which fortunately we haven't had any snow events yet.
Yeah.
But
Well, we did last year by this
we
time.
did last year, so here's 20 and 21.
Yeah. That'll be a little bit more interesting.
Yeah, but we found this has been a nice flexible way for us to offer dashboard information to different individuals depending on their need. So like with tree dashboards, our forestry group actually has their own, group of dashboards that's most important to them. And we can just add the ones that are important to our street supervisor, Jeff, the ones that he needs to see for trees, because streets also helps with tree removal. So that's where we're able to do some, it's a good way for us to have them see what they need to see. And with plow entry and a lot of our applications, we've been able to utilize the survey embedding so that you can have a survey, which once embedded, you can have it interact. So if you want to interact with a specific record, you can have the dashboard interact with the survey and therefore edit a survey, and it makes your dashboard an editable application, I guess. And that was something that was sort of helpful in just getting us the ability to add editing capability where we might not need them to edit all 50 fields, but we only need them to interact with 3 or 4 fields and whatever is important to them. So that's been helpful.
Yeah, and they actually have been really receptive to it for the most part. There were a few bumps in the road. This is, I think, our 3rd season using this. And it's been really helpful. Our supervisor used to have to fill out a big paper form, gather all the paper from all the plow drivers and put it on another paper form and have somebody else enter it, some of the information. And now we basically can run it through the GIS data and get the report created from the data entry that's put into the surveys. Some of the crew, they still have paper in the trucks where they're writing down, their time and materials and that kind of stuff. And that's where like someone had asked about the kind of integrating it with the snowplow, maybe AVL system. That would be kind of a next step that we're not quite there yet, but maybe someday.
Yep. So I'm not sure what we have for attendance still is, I think that kind of wraps up what we needed to cover. So thanks for everybody's questions and attendance. Great. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you. Thanks for attending and have a great conference, everyone. Hopefully we'll see you next year.
Yeah.
Great. Thank you, Leah and Tami, for the great presentation and patiently answering the questions. And thank you, everybody, for attending this session. Hopefully see you next year.
Thanks, Ali.
Bye.